The summer breeze carried the sound of children's laughter across the playground of Western Elementary School. Teacher Robert watched his students play during their afternoon break, smiling as they chased each other around the swings and slides. It was a perfectly normal day in late June, until the sky turned dark. At first, everyone thought it was just another summer storm rolling in. But when Robert looked up, his heart stopped. A massive shadow crept across the playground as an enormous ship, at least a mile wide, blocked out the sun. Its dark metal surface reflected no light, making it look like a hole had been torn in the sky itself. The children stopped playing and stared upward, some pointing in wonder, others clutching their friends in fear. Robert's training kicked in. "Everyone inside now," he shouted, trying to keep his voice steady. But before the children could move, bright beams of light shot down from the ship. The screaming started. Robert ran toward the nearest group of students, but an invisible force held him back. He could only watch in horror as the beams of light lifted children into the air, pulling them upward toward the massive ship. Tommy, Lisa, Jack. He called out their names desperately, struggling against the force field that kept the adults away from the children. All across the city, the same scene played out at every school, park, and playground. The alien ships had appeared simultaneously over every major city on Earth. Military jets scrambled to respond, but their weapons seemed useless against the massive vessels. Missiles exploded harmlessly against invisible shields, and fighter planes were swatted away like annoying flies. Parents rushed to schools only to find they were too late. The ships worked with terrifying efficiency, taking only children between 5 and 12 years old. Within 30 minutes, the abduction was complete. Thousands of children had vanished into the alien vessels. As the ships began to rise back into the atmosphere, every screen on Earth, phones, computers, televisions, displayed the same message. No to IC, to primitive species 3742b. Self-designation, humans. Your offspring have been claimed under Galactic Empire Revenue Code 276A, which permits the acquisition of labor resources from undeveloped worlds. Your species has not achieved faster than light travel, and therefore has no rights under galactic law. Resistance will result in planetary sterilization. Glory to the Eternal Empire. The message vanished, and with it, humanity's innocence about its place in the universe. Robert sat on the empty playground, tears streaming down his face. Around him, other teachers and staff members were in similar states of shock. 23 children from his class alone. Gone. The little shoes left behind on the playground. The half-eaten lunches in the cafeteria. The backpacks still hanging on their hooks. All served as cruel reminders of what had just happened. In the days that followed, Earth learned the true scope of the tragedy. Over 50,000 children had been taken worldwide. The most powerful nations found themselves helpless against technology centuries beyond their understanding. Military leaders who had spent decades preparing for every possible threat now faced an enemy they couldn't even reach. But in their rush to demonstrate their power, the Galactic Empire had made a crucial mistake. They had assumed that a species' level of technological advancement determined its strength. They didn't understand that they had just awakened something far more dangerous than any advanced civilization they had encountered before. Human parents who would stop at nothing to get their children back. As the sun set on that first terrible day, the seeds of Earth's fury were already beginning to grow. In labs, military bases, and secret facilities around the world, humans began to plan. The Empire had taken humanity's children, believing Earth was too primitive to fight back. They would soon learn how wrong they were. 6 months had passed since the day of the abduction. The world had changed. Gone were the sounds of children playing in parks. Empty swings moved in the wind, and toys gathered dust on store shelves. But humanity wasn't grieving anymore. They were preparing. James Miller hadn't slept properly since losing his daughter Amy. A former space station engineer, he now worked in a secret underground facility where scientists studied the alien technology left behind during the abduction. One piece in particular had caught his attention: a damaged communication device from an Empire dropship that had been shot down over Russia. Late one night, while everyone else had gone home, James finally managed to power up the device. His hand shook as alien text scrolled across its screen. Years of working with complex systems helped him understand the basic interface. What he found made his blood run cold. The device contained shipping manifests. Children weren't listed as prisoners or even slaves. They were labeled as mining resources. The Empire used them in crystal mines across the Centauri system. Their small hands perfect for extracting delicate mineral formations from narrow tunnels. The crystals powered the Empire's faster-than-light drives. James immediately contacted the newly formed Human Defense Council. Within hours, he found himself in a secure room with military leaders from around the world. The atmosphere was tense as he shared his findings. "The good news," James explained, pointing to the star charts he'd downloaded, "is that we now know exactly where they're keeping our children. The bad news is that the Centauri system is heavily guarded. The Empire has a fleet of 1,000 ships protecting the mining operations." General Adams, who had lost both her grandchildren in the abduction, leaned forward. "Tell us more about these mines." "The crystals are extremely delicate," James continued. "They break if handled by machines. The Empire specifically targets younger children because their small hands and natural dexterity make them ideal workers. His voice cracked. They work 12-hour shifts in narrow tunnels." The room erupted in angry murmurs. Dr. Wong, Earth's leading physicist, spoke up. "We've been studying their shield technology. It's advanced, but it has a weakness. They rely entirely on energy deflection. They've never encountered our more primitive projectile weapons." "What about their sensors?" asked Admiral Thompson. "How do we get past those?" James pulled up another diagram. "That's the interesting part. Their technology is so advanced that they only look for energy signatures they understand. They don't even scan for basic radio waves anymore. They'd never expect a spacefaring race to use such primitive methods." The meeting lasted through the night. By morning, Operation Homecoming was born. Earth would build its own fleet, but not with copied alien technology. Instead, they would create hybrid ships, human ingenuity combined with reverse-engineered Empire tech. The next week, as James walked through the massive underground shipyard in the Australian outback, he felt hope for the first time in months. Dozens of stealth ships were being constructed, their hulls lined with materials that absorbed both light and energy scans. They didn't look like the sleek Empire vessels. They were darker, more angular, built for stealth rather than show. The Empire had made a terrible mistake. They thought taking Earth's children would break humanity's spirit. Instead, it had united the planet like never before. Former enemies worked side by side. Every resource, every brilliant mind, every factory was dedicated to one goal: bringing the children home. In his pocket, James carried Amy's favorite hair ribbon. He'd found it on the playground after she was taken. Looking at the ships under construction, he made a silent promise. "We're coming, sweetheart. And the Empire won't know what hit them." The discovery of the mining operations had given Earth something it desperately needed: a target. Now, the real work would begin. The Empire was about to learn that there was nothing more dangerous than a planet full of parents fighting to save their children. The massive underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains hummed with activity. In what was once a missile silo, Dr. Emma stood before a strange-looking weapon. It didn't have the sleek, polished look of Empire technology. Instead, it was dark and rough, like a predator ready to strike from the shadows. "Show me," ordered General Adams, who had arrived for the weekly progress report. Emma pressed a button, and a pulse of invisible energy shot across the testing chamber. The Empire shield they'd reconstructed flickered and died. "We call it the blackout pulse," she explained. "Their shields are perfect at stopping things that hit them, but they never considered someone might simply turn them off." The general's eyes narrowed. "How did you manage this?" "We studied the way their shields work. They're so advanced that they forgot the basics, like turning off a light switch instead of trying to break the bulb. Emma pointed to the weapon's simple design. They're looking for complex attacks. This just sends the shield system to sleep. Across the world, in similar facilities, humanity's arsenal was growing. Not by copying the Empire's technology, but by finding ways around it. The aliens had called humans primitive. Now that primitive thinking would be their secret weapon. In the Indian Ocean, a submarine facility worked on something even more ambitious. Dr. Ray watched through thick glass as robots assembled the first human stealth ship. Its hull was coated with a material that absorbed all types of energy: radar, light, even the exotic scans the Empire used. "It's like being invisible," asked a visiting admiral. "Better," Ray replied. "Their sensors are so advanced that they don't even look for ships like ours. We're too simple to show up on their scans, like trying to find a wooden boat using a satellite." The ship looked nothing like the Empire's vessels, where their ships were bright and imposing. This one was dark and angular, designed to reflect nothing. They named it Shadow One, the first of 300 that would be built. But the biggest surprise was being developed in an Australian desert facility. Professor Tom, who had lost his son in the abduction, had been studying the Empire's faster-than-light drives. He discovered something incredible. Their drives work by bending space, he explained to the project leaders. But we found a way to tear it instead. He pointed to a missile-like device. We're calling it the Space Ripper. When it detonates, it creates a temporary hole in space itself. Their ships can't predict or defend against it because it's not in any of their scientific databases. The Empire had ruled space for 10,000 years. They'd forgotten what it was like to face an enemy who thought differently. Their technology had become standardized, predictable. But humans were anything but predictable. In a Japanese facility, they developed fighters that could switch between normal space and a shadow dimension, appearing and disappearing at will. Brazilian scientists created viruses that could infect and confuse Empire computers. Russian engineers built electromagnetic pulse generators that could fry Empire systems without harming Earth technology. Each weapon was tested against captured Empire technology. Each one worked because it approached the problem in ways the Empire had forgotten were possible. They weren't trying to match the Empire's technology. They were finding ways to make it useless. At the main command center, General Adams reviewed the progress. 300 ships, thousands of weapons, and one chance to save Earth's children. The fleet would be ready in 2 months. The Empire thought they had conquered a primitive species. Instead, they had awakened humanity's oldest and strongest instinct, protecting their young. As the first full squadron of stealth ships rose from their underground hangars for a night test flight, their black hulls blended perfectly with the darkness. Soon, that darkness would spread across the Empire's worlds. They would learn that sometimes the most primitive response, the raw, desperate fury of a parent protecting their child, was the most powerful force in the universe. Commander Anna stood at the bridge of Shadow One, watching the blue light of hyperspace fade away. The Centauri system's red sun hung before them like a drop of blood. Somewhere down there, thousands of Earth's children worked in crystal mines. 2 of them were hers. "Stealth systems holding," reported her second-in-command, Mike. "Empire sensors show no sign of detecting us." Their ship, along with 5 others, had slipped into the system using paths between the regular patrol routes. The Empire's arrogance made them predictable. They always followed the same patterns. Through the view screen, Anna could see the mining planet. It looked like Mars, but larger, with massive crystal formations jutting from its surface. Empire ships moved in regular patterns around it, their crews never expecting an attack from a primitive species. "Launch the probes," Anna ordered. Small, dark objects detached from Shadow One, designed to look like space debris. These would map the entire planet and find the mine entrances. Hours passed as data flowed in. The picture it painted was grim. 20 separate mining complexes dotted the planet's surface. Each one held hundreds of children, working in deep tunnels to extract the precious crystals that powered Empire ships. But the probes found something else, something unexpected. "Commander," called out Susan from the sensor station, "we're picking up non-human biosignatures in the mines. Other species, they're using slave labor from across the galaxy." Anna's hands gripped the command chair. "Open a channel to the other ships. We're moving to Phase 2. Under cover of the planet's magnetic storms, they landed their ships in a valley far from any mine. A small team led by Anna would try to make contact with the slaves. They wore suits designed to mask their life signs, making them appear as nothing more than background radiation to Empire sensors. The trek to the nearest mine took 3 hours. What they found shocked them all. The entrance was barely guarded. The Empire never expected anyone to attack this far into their territory. Through their scopes, they could see children being led into the mine. Among them were beings that looked almost human, but with blue or green skin. All wore the same tired, defeated expressions. "Look," Mike whispered, pointing to a group of larger aliens loading crystals onto a transport. "The guards aren't watching them as closely. They've been here longer." Anna nodded. These would be their way in. Using hand signals, she directed her team to circle around to where the alien workers took their break. As they got closer, they could hear them speaking, their suits automatically translating the various languages. "Another group arrived yesterday," one was saying. "They get younger every time." Anna stepped out of hiding, her hands raised. The aliens froze, but didn't call for guards. They could see she wasn't Empire. "We're from Earth," she said simply. "The Empire took our children. We've come to free them. All of them." The aliens looked at each other, hope and fear warring in their expressions. One stepped forward, his blue skin marked with age lines. "I am First Worker Rel. We have waited long for someone to fight back. But the Empire, they are too strong." Anna smiled grimly. "They think they are, but we've learned their weaknesses. We need your help. We can free everyone, but we need to coordinate the attack perfectly." For the next hour, they learned the mine's layout, the guard patterns, the location of every child. More importantly, they learned there was an entire underground network of resistance among the slave workers. Every species the Empire had enslaved had been waiting for a chance to fight back. Back on Shadow 1, Anna sent the coded signal to Earth. The attack would begin in 3 days. The Empire had built their perfect, ordered society on the backs of slaves, believing their technology made them invincible. They were about to learn that the strongest weapons weren't the most advanced. They were the hope of the oppressed and the fury of parents fighting for their children. As she looked at the photos of her children on her desk, Anna whispered, "Just 3 more days. Hold on." The time was set, dawn on the mining planet. 300 Earth ships hung in the darkness of space, invisible to Empire sensors. Commander Anna's voice crackled through the secure channel. "All ships, activate blackout pulse on my mark." On the planet below, First Worker Rel and his resistance network had spread the word. In every mine, slaves of a dozen species waited. The children had been told to stay close to their alien protectors when the attack began. 3, 2, 1, mark. Pulses of invisible energy shot from the Earth fleet. Empire ships suddenly lost power, their shields dying silently in space. Before alarms could sound, the second wave began. Space rivers, humanity's crude but effective answer to Empire defenses. Torn holes in space itself around key defense positions. Empire crews panicked as their ships drifted, powerless. They had never faced an enemy who could simply turn off their technology. Their training had no protocols for such primitive attacks. Shadow 1 led the first assault team down to the largest mine complex. Anna watched through the viewscreen as Empire guards ran in confusion, their weapons dead, their communications silent. The sight of their fear brought a grim smile to her face. "Ground teams, deploy," she ordered. Human soldiers in dark armor poured out of the ships, using simple projectile weapons that needed no power to function. Empire troops, used to energy weapons and force fields, fell quickly. Their advanced armor, designed to stop plasma bolts, did nothing against old-fashioned bullets. Inside the mines, Rel gave the signal. Slaves overpowered their few remaining guards. Adult aliens protected the children, guiding them to predetermined rescue points. Years of abuse turned to revenge as the Empire's carefully controlled workforce became an army of liberation. Mama, Mama. Anna's heart stopped. Through the chaos of the battle, she heard a voice she dreamed of for months. Her daughter ran toward her, led by a tall, blue-skinned alien. Behind them came her son, helping a younger child who had fallen. But there was no time for reunion yet. Empire reinforcements would come soon. All teams, begin evacuation, she commanded, holding her children close with one arm while still directing the operation. Across the planet, Earth ships landed at every mine. The scene repeated again and again. Confused Empire troops, liberated slaves, rescued children. The operation moved with perfect precision, just as they'd planned for months. Then came the call they'd been waiting for. Empire battle fleet detected. 100 ships, maybe more, entering the system. Anna smiled. They'd planned for this too. Launch the virus, she ordered. As the Empire fleet approached, ready to crush these upstart primitives, their computers began to fail. The virus, hidden in regular maintenance signals they'd captured, spread from ship to ship. Screens showed hallways full of imaginary enemies. Weapons targeted their own vessels. All ships, activate shadow drives, Anna commanded. The Earth fleet vanished, shifting into the shadow dimension their scientists had discovered. Empire ships fired blindly, hitting only their own confused allies. When the Earth ships reappeared, they were behind the Empire fleet. The battle lasted less than an hour. The Empire, for all its technology, had no defense against enemies they couldn't predict or understand. Their ships either fled or drifted powerless in space. As the last children were loaded onto rescue ships, Anna watched the mining complex burn. They'd rigged it with simple explosives, another technology the Empire had forgotten to guard against. 6,000 children had been rescued, not just humans, but young ones from other enslaved species too. First Worker Rel, she called over the comm. Are you ready to lead your people home? The alien's voice was thick with emotion. Thanks to Earth, we all are. But this is only the beginning. The Empire has more slave worlds. Anna looked at her children, safe now in the ship's medical bay. Then I guess we have more work to do. Earth doesn't leave allies behind. The fleet jumped to light speed, leaving the Empire's prized mining world in chaos. The message would spread across the galaxy. Humanity had not only survived the Empire's attack, they had struck back. And they were just getting started. The Emperor's throne room fell silent as the report came in. A primitive species had not only penetrated their defenses, but had freed thousands of slaves and destroyed their most productive mining world. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Empire faced real defeat. Launch the Eternal Fleet, the Emperor commanded. All of it. 10,000 warships, each larger than a city, emerged from hyperspace near Earth. Their golden hulls gleamed in the sunlight, a display of power meant to terrify the primitive world below. But Earth wasn't primitive anymore, and it wasn't alone. General Adams stood in the Global Command Center deep beneath the Himalayas. Around her, representatives from 24 alien species, all former slaves, worked alongside humans. Their combined knowledge of Empire tactics had helped prepare for this moment. They're deploying exactly as First Worker Rel predicted, she said, watching the tactical display. The Empire never changes its strategy. That's their weakness. The Empire fleet formed a perfect geometric pattern, their standardized tactics unchanged for millennia. They expected Earth to surrender at the mere sight of their overwhelming force. Instead, they received a message. This is General Adams of Earth. You took our children. Now we will take your empire. The battle began with confusion. The Empire's sensors showed Earth's cities completely undefended. They didn't detect the thousands of weapons hidden in orbit, all running on simple electronics their scans ignored. They didn't see the Earth fleet hiding in the shadow dimension. The first wave of Empire ships launched their attack. Energy weapons powerful enough to crack planets fired at Earth's major cities, but the beams hit nothing. The entire planet seemed to flicker like a bad transmission. "Hologram net holding," reported Dr. Ray from his station. The Empire was attacking a projected image of Earth, while the real planet sat safely half a phase shift away. Another primitive trick that worked perfectly against advanced sensors. The Emperor watched in growing horror as his fleet's weapons passed harmlessly through the false Earth. Before they could adjust, humanity struck back. Space itself began to tear open around the Empire ships as hundreds of space rippers detonated. Holes in reality swallowed entire squadrons of the galaxy's most advanced warships. Impossible, the Emperor raged. They're animals, primitives. How are they doing this? The answer came as Earth's fleet appeared behind the Empire's perfect formation. Electromagnetic pulses washed over the golden ships, turning their advanced technology into useless metal. Projectile weapons, simple rockets and bullets, tore through armor designed to stop energy weapons. But the Empire's numbers were still overwhelming. As their ships began to adapt, humanity unveiled its final weapon. Dr. Tom's voice came over the command channel, initiating Project Gravity. Devices planted throughout the Empire fleet activated. Each one created a microscopic black hole that lasted less than a second. But a second was enough. Empire ships began to implode, crushed by humanity's understanding of basic physics. Their weapons, an Empire admiral reported, fear in his voice. They don't follow any known scientific principles. We can't defend against them. That was humanity's true weapon, the ability to think differently. While the Empire had perfected a single way of fighting over thousands of years, humans had developed countless methods of warfare. Each one seems primitive alone, but together they were unstoppable. The battle raged for hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. Earth's weapons weren't just damaging the Empire fleet, they were demoralizing it. Every defeat proved that their technological superiority meant nothing against human ingenuity. As the last Empire ships fled or surrendered, General Adams sent a final message to the Emperor. This was just the first battle. Surrender now or face extinction. The choice that you never gave our children, we now give to you. The Emperor looked out at his ruined fleet, the pride of 10,000 years of Empire might, destroyed in a day by a species he had dismissed as primitive. And for the first time in his immortal life, he felt fear. The Imperial Palace on Capital World had stood for 10,000 years. Its crystal spires touched the clouds, a symbol of the Empire's eternal power. Now those spires cast shadows over the greatest gathering in galactic history. In the Grand Throne Room, Commander Anna and General Adams stood before the Emperor, but they weren't alone. Behind them stood representatives from every species the Empire had enslaved. The room was packed with former slaves, resistance fighters, and Earth's military leaders. The Emperor, his golden robes now dulled with defeat, sat shrunk in his massive throne. "You understand the terms?" Anna asked, her voice carrying no hint of negotiation. On her left stood her children, rescued from the mines. On her right stood First Worker Rel, now the leader of his people's liberation army. The Emperor's voice shook with rage and fear. "This is unprecedented. The Empire has ruled for 10,000 years. We brought order to chaos." "You brought slavery and pain," General Adams corrected. "You built your order on the backs of children. Now you will watch it fall." The terms were simple: immediate freedom for all enslaved species, return of their homeworlds, and the complete dissolution of the Empire. Earth and its allies would form a new galactic federation, one built on freedom and mutual respect. As the Emperor hesitated, Anna stepped forward. "Let me be clear. Earth's fleet now controls your major systems. Our primitive weapons have proven they can destroy your best defenses. Choose carefully." The Emperor looked at the faces around him. His advisors avoided his gaze. Many of them had already pledged loyalty to the new Federation. In just 6 months, humanity had dismantled an empire that had stood for millennia. The Emperor's voice cracked. "I accept the terms." The announcement went out across all frequencies, in all languages. The Empire was no more. Celebrations erupted on thousands of worlds. Slaves threw down their chains. Parents reunited with children. Species that had been separated for generations found each other again. In the aftermath, the first meeting of the Galactic Federation took place in an unexpected location, a simple classroom on Earth. Commander Anna watched as her children sat alongside young ones from a dozen different species. They were learning each other's languages, sharing stories, healing together. "It's amazing," First Worker Rel said, standing beside her. "In all our years of slavery, we never imagined freedom would come from a primitive world." General Adams joined them, looking over a holographic map showing the former Empire's territories being divided among their rightful owners. The Empire's greatest mistake was believing that advanced technology meant advanced thinking. They forgot that the most powerful force in the universe isn't their weapons or their ships. It's love. Anna finished, watching her daughter teach an alien child how to draw Earth animals. The love of parents for their children. They should have remembered that. The Federation grew quickly. Earth's primitive thinking brought fresh perspectives to old problems. Technologies were shared, but so were simpler things: art, music, games. The crystal mines were converted into museums, reminding future generations of the price of tyranny and the power of unity. 1 year after the abduction, the last Imperial banner was lowered on Capital World. In its place rose the flag of the Federation, a simple design showing many stars joining to form something greater than their parts. Commander Anna stood in her backyard on Earth, watching her children play with their alien friends. The night sky above was full of ships coming and going, trade vessels, diplomatic missions, families exploring the galaxy together. Humanity had gone from a primitive species to the leaders of a free galaxy, all because they refused to give up on their children. Was it worth it? Her daughter asked, looking up at the stars. Going to war with an entire empire. Anna pulled her close. For you, we would have fought the whole universe. In the end, the Empire had been right about one thing. Humans were different from any species they had encountered before, but it wasn't their primitiveness that made them special. It was their ability to love, to fight, and to change the very stars themselves to protect their own. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what it needed.